What's up, guys? TRJ here, bringing you some kill confirmed on Hard Hat, I think. So Hard Hat, or kill confirmed, in my opinion, is I've heard a lot about it on consoles. I want to give it a try. I've played it, a handful of times, and I think in general, I really don't like it because it plays way too much like TDM, and I think the majority of maps are way too campy for this style of play, and you end up with people just crouching around barrels all over the place. I think I was fortunate enough to actually have a decent ping, a decent team, and I ran into an enemy team that wasn't camping all over the goddamn place. In my experience, when I play Kill Confirmed, it plays almost identical to TDM, and people really don't give a fuck about the stupid dog tags that drop. They will, they'll run up and grab them, you know, if they can make it there, but otherwise they just don't give a fuck. They're content to sit back and snipe all day long, or crouch behind a corner and do their thing that, you know, CoD is so famous for. I think the biggest reason why I'm not a bigger fan of Kill Confirmed, I mean the biggest reason why, is probably because of the latency / ping issues. Kill Confirmed is all about, well, killing people, and to me, what I really get off on and my strengths are basically outsmarting or outskilling somebody in face-to-face confrontations. You know, the more aggressive you play and the faster you play, the more face-to-face confrontations you're going to have. It's inevitable. And unfortunately, there is no better way to get frustrated, lose, and die than basically engage in face-to-face confrontations with, you know, either a shitty ping or, you know, in general, you know, the really fast damage weapons, you know, make it really tough. And it would be easier, you know, you wouldn't have to have as good of a ping if the weapons weren't doing that incredible damage. You know, basically the latency in those weapons, you know, more or less negate, like I said, the those face-to-face confrontational aggressive style skills. You can actually largely minimize the extent of latency issues by playing this game the way that basically CoD is meant to be played, and that is, it's a very defensive style. It's a very defensive tactic. It's not rushing headlong into people or aggressively pursuing somebody, because that is almost guaranteed to be suicide. What instead you do is, you know, you play the radar, you play the map, and you play with the terrain. You know, the best players out there are not going to the enemies; they're letting the enemies basically come to them, and it's a really weird style change. You know, this is why one thing is one of the big reasons why I think that almost anybody that plays CoD can be, like I said, a great player, because it nullifies any potential, like I said, for that aggressive gameplay as a result of so many of those factors that we always talk about. And I think that, you know, it's hard for me to want to, I'll say, sit back, because I feel like I'm giving you guys the wrong impression. You know, I get people saying, you know, when I talk about defensive styles of play, I get people like, oh, so-and-so is aggressive, or this guy rushes, and I just can't stress enough, but it would be hard to get that perspective, that there is no aggressive, there is no rushing, there is no anything along those lines in this game. It does not exist. It cannot exist in this game. You know, even like the way that I'm playing this right now, you know, compared to somebody, you know, somebody linked me a Wings of Redemption video, and it was the first, maybe second video of his I've ever seen. And I didn't realize that people actually played like that. I thought it was more of a joke or a parody or something, that somebody would actually sit around and do that. Sit in a corner and basically camp and then try to get a Moab and talk about how great they are. Like I said, I thought that was just a joke. Anyway, not to harp on that too much, but I can see why, that if that's the majority of the way that people play, I can see why people have a tendency to want to call other people that don't do that as aggressive or something like that. But like I said, I can't stress enough that there really is no incentive to want to play aggressively in this game. Furthermore, it's just not even an option. Not that your stars can't align, and you know, you walk into a game and you've got a great ping and a good team, and the other team's not being campy. But if you're going up against semi-decent players, and/or you don't have a fantastic connection, and/or your team is not amazing, you will get demolished playing semi-aggressively. And like I said, semi-aggressively for what this game even allows. The best way, the most efficient way to play this game is you know, like I said, abusing the fuck out of your radar and letting your enemies come to you. You know, using your teammates as cannon fodder, running a few steps, waiting for them to walk around the corner, and doing things like I said, you know, like peeking through like the lattice or peeking through the crates stacked on each other or aiming over barrels. All sorts of those things will net you a whole lot of kills. And even like the stuff that I'm doing right now, like my opinion, like this is all garbage. Not that it doesn't take skill, but the amount of skill that it could take if, like I said, weapons were slightly toned down and you didn't have terrain that offered you vantage points, you know, from one side of the map to the other and multiple directions. Typically when you walk out of, you know, just about anywhere, there's multiple directions you can be shot from. You know, you have extreme basically alleyways or pits or areas to go either to the right or to the left of you, and it's not possible to look both to the right and to the left. You know, it's not possible to look across the entire fucking map when you're, you know, sprinting across. Like, you could die at any given time right now. If there's been some guy over there sitting behind that green canister, I'd be fucking dead. There's just way too many ways to die. There's way too many vantage points. Like I said, this game not just encourages a defensive style of play, but it punishes aggressive style. Like I said, somebody who is not playing as, you know, just because you're not sitting in a corner does not mean you are playing aggressively, and I can't stress that enough. And, you know, hopefully one of these days a game will come out where, like I said, it's you know, maybe has some dedicated servers, or we've got better weapons that are slightly toned down. You guys can see and feel more what I'm talking about. But until that day, like I said, it's just 1,000 shades of defensive play. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more.